StudyIQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello everyone. I hope this message finds you fit and fine. Please confirm if my voice is fine and you are all set to start. All set? Great. So today we need to talk about Parliamentary System of India. And before we talk about Parliamentary System of India, we need to talk about Parliament as a word. My friends, there can be two set of questions. Means if we talk about prelims even, so there may be a question, which of the following features represent parliamentary system? And there may be another kind of question, which of the following features represent features of parliamentary system of India? So my point is that you should have clear demarcation in mind that there may be some features in parliamentary system which are not present in parliamentary system of India. So how we can handle these kind of questions? When we have clear idea how this idea emerged, idea of parliament emerged, and in modern times what kind of features are there and how it is different from presidential system, because another set of questions are difference between presidential and parliamentary system. This topic is important for prelims as well as mains. So in mains you can take a look over these questions 2019 and 21. Even though we are starting, you just read this question. At least you should have an idea what kind of approach is needed. Parliament is a platform to deliberate, discuss and decide, not for disruptions in democracy. Comment. So why this question has been asked? Because there were reports that considerable amount of time of Parliament get wasted in these disruptions. So should we have some dedicated rules in Parliament so that this precious time of Parliament, money of ours which we have contributed as taxpayers, can be saved? So it means the question in means would be around major debate. One set of question is on debate. Okay. Other kind of questions are on principles and provisions as well. What are the merits and demerits of parliamentary system of government? So I would say this is a direct question, right? We are going to talk about merits and demerits within this session. Don't worry. What were the reasons for adopting the parliamentary system in India? Now, it is telling about reasons, asking about reasons. So we should have some clear, keywords in mind. Okay, when this question is asked, these are the keywords I have to produce, right? Along with this, since it is being asked in mains, you should also quote some famous constitutional assembly member. Okay, so this will add legitimacy to your answer. कई बार मन में सवाल आता होगा कि इस प्रिपरेशन को शुरू तो कर दिया है, मजा भी आ रहा है, तभी आप इस वीडियो में हैं, सीखने को तो मिल रहा है, लेकिन क्या उतना पढ़ा जा रहा है जितना इस एग्जाम को क्लियर करने के लिए जरूरी है? क्योंकि अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव तो क्या है? योर नेम इन मेरिट लिस्ट। तो देखिए, कंटेंट तो सेम है, लेकिन कंटेंट को यूज करने की हमें स्किल डेवलप करनी है। कैसे होगी वो स्किल डेवलप? पहले तो भाई टाइम से हर एक सब्जेक्ट का कंटेंट तैयार होना चाहिए। अगर आप वो कर रहे हैं ठीक है, लेकिन इफ यू वांट टू टेक हेल्प तो आप StudyIQ की हेल्प ले सकते हैं। जो StudyIQ का P2I प्रोग्राम है, आप StudyIQ ऐप या वेबसाइट पर देख सकते हैं। P2I मतलब प्रीलिम्स से लेकर इंटरव्यू तक का एक प्रोग्राम। तो ये एक प्रोग्राम के अंदर 4 फेजेस हैं। तो उस 4 फेजेस के थ्रू पहले ही फेज में आपका कंप्लीट सिलेबस हो जाएगा। तो इट इज लाइक द बेसिक थिंग, ये तो करना ही है। इसके बाद आता है कि हमें स्किल्स डेवलप करनी है, यानी कि उस कंटेंट का प्रीलिम्स में इस्तेमाल हो सके, उस कंटेंट का मेंस में इस्तेमाल हो सके, यानी कि आंसर राइटिंग। फिर हमें असेसमेंट चाहिए बीच बीच में, जिससे कि हमें कमियां पता लगती रहें। तो इसके लिए भी P2I में आपको प्रीलिम्स मेंस दोनों की टेस्ट सीरीज दी जा रही है। वीकेंड पर भी टेस्ट होते हैं, प्लस डेली मेंस आंसर राइटिंग होती है। तो आपको नहीं लगता अगर इतना कोई मेहनत आपके साथ कर ले तो आप करना तो चाहते हैं, बट एक पाथवे नहीं है, तो P2I प्रोग्राम वो पाथवे आपके लिए साबित हो सकता है। तो टेक हेल्प ऑफ दिस। फिर आपके मन में कभी कभी जो डाउट आता है उसको ढूंढने के लिए आपका काफी समय जाया हो जाता है। जाया इसलिए कह रहा हूं क्योंकि हो सकता है उस डाउट को ढूंढने के लिए आपने 1 घंटा लगा दिया, क्योंकि उससे एसोसिएटेड काफी सारी चीजें नई नई पता लगती चली गई आपको। ऐसे में इस टाइम को रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं आप एग्जाम ओरिएंटेड क्या उस डाउट से रिलेटेड नॉलेज आपको चाहिए, वो आपको एक पर्सनल मेंटोर बता सकता है। तो इस कोर्स में फैकल्टीज तो आपके साथ हैं ही, इस पूरी जर्नी में आपको पर्सनल मेंटोर दिया जा रहा है, आप उसकी हेल्प लीजिए। आप कॉल व्हाट्सएप पर कभी भी उनके साथ कनेक्ट हो सकते हैं। उनका नंबर आपको इस कोर्स में स्पेसिफिकली आपको अलॉट होगा। तो अल्टीमेटली आपका टाइम बचेगा, कॉन्फिडेंस आएगा प्रिपरेशन में। फिर जैसे ही आप प्रीलिम्स क्लियर कर लेते हैं तो उसके बाद मेंस रेजिडेंशियल प्रोग्राम, ये इसका सेकंड फेज, मतलब थर्ड फेज कहिए, क्योंकि पहले फेज में फाउंडेशन है, फिर सक्सेस इन प्रीलिम्स है, फिर एमआरपी है, मेंस रेजिडेंशियल प्रोग्राम। फिर उसके लिए आप दिल्ली बुला लिया जाता है आपको। यहाँ पर आप मतलब जो फूडिंग, लॉजिंग, एवरीथिंग इज टेकन केयर बाय StudyIQ। और उसके बाद फिर रिगरस प्रिपरेशन होती है आपकी मेंस के हिसाब से, यानी कि हर एक जो आपका पेपर है, GS है, लैंग्वेज है, essay है, हर एक की तैयारी यहीं पर हम आपको अपने सामने कराते हैं। उसके बाद जैसे आप मेंस क्लियर करते हैं तो इंटरव्यू गाइडेंस प्रोग्राम, वहाँ पर आपके कोहोर्ट्स बनते हैं जिसमें डिस्कशन के थ्रू जो आपके अदर एस्पिरेंट्स हैं, जो आपके साथ इंटरव्यू देने वाले हैं, तो आप अपनी स्किल्स को पॉलिश करते हैं। साथ में ब्यूरोक्रेट्स, फॉर्मर टॉपर्स, ये सब फैकल्टीज आपको मिलकर गाइड करते हैं। फाइनली व्हेन यू आर थ्रू इनटू द मेरिट लिस्ट, देन फिर आपको लगता है कि हाँ, इट वाज ऑल वर्थ इट। मिलते हैं आपसे क्लासेस में, ख्याल रखिए, जय हिंद। Now let's start with the idea, parliamentary form of government. Before we go, let's start with the word itself, parliament. And in between I'm going to raise some questions, right? And you have to answer in comments, okay? So this word parliament comes from the word parlor. So actually this is a French word. And this word means speaking, act of speaking. And all of you know that in parliament we talk about, the different laws, means our representatives who are member of this parliament, they discuss on matters of importance, public importance, and that's how this lawmaking process happens. So it means speaking is essential part of parliament, right? Now, is this a modern concept, or this idea of parliament was present in ancient time as well? It is said that within the ancient tribal societies also, there was a system of council. In Hindi, council word is known as parishad. So council, it means you will have members from the tribe, and they will discuss matters of importance for the tribe. And this discussion, the conclusion of this discussion, is then presented before, you can say, head of the tribesmen, head of the tribe, right? Now in parliament we also have houses. For example, in case of India, we have Lok Sabha, we have Raj Sabha. After this deliberation, matter is presented before honorable president, who is the head of the state for India, right? So it means it is an ancient concept, but it has, you can say, fine-tuned within this process, and in the modern time it became one of the most popular concept, okay, of polity. Now please remember, the concept of parliamentary system is associated with democracy. So consider there's a statement asked by UPSC, and UPSC says that parliamentary system can only be connected with the idea of democracy. It means parliamentary system is present only in one form of government, that is democratic form of government. Do you think that statement would be true or false? Come on, in comments. And you can share this video with some of your friends or groups so that they can also engage, and we can actually have some competitive environment here. Let's see how you people are actually connecting with these concepts. Come on. Answer is yes. You know why yes? Because when I am saying parliamentary system, so there is a parliament, okay, in which there are representatives, and representatives of whom? People. So if people are electing their representatives, this is possible only in case of democracy, right? So I think one thing is clear to you. Now let's go to the second check. Consider that this is a house. Okay, house means I'm talking about legislative house, okay, where law making process happens. And these are people. We are here, okay, and we exercised our right to vote, and we elected some representatives in this house, okay. Now if this legislative house is there and there are representatives elected by people, is it mandatory that this will be a condition of parliamentary system? Is it mandatory? Is it yes or no? Means, is it mandatory? I'm having this a particular approach to this topic because the kind of questions UPSC is asking nowadays are not that direct in nature. These questions are having analytical bend, right? So we need to think ahead. How statements can be molded to actually get students under trap. Okay, now tell me, it will be mandatory or not? Yes or no? Come on, in comments. So those who are saying yes, my answer is no. It is not mandatory. Why? Take example of USA. In case of USA, they have Senate. They have House of Representatives. So the members of the Senate, House of Representatives, they're elected by the people. But what we call USA, a parliamentary system of government? No, we call it presidential form of government. So from this discussion, what learning you got? Learning is that this is just one facet of parliamentary system. Just presence of this setup in legislative process does not mean it is mandatorily parliamentary system. If you are clear about this now, mention clear in comments. Okay. Now I think second learning is complete. Now, so parliamentary system has some other names as well, and you should be aware of these names. What are the other names? Can you just mention in comments? So along with this, we have cabinet system. We have responsible government. There's another name, responsible government. And please remember, the word responsible here should not be read in common parlance. Means in common parlance, what you consider as responsible. If something is told you that you have to do this and you are doing that, you are considered responsible. But when we talk about form of government, the word responsible is not just about doing things what people are expecting. Okay, it is more than that. We are going to talk about it. Responsible. Another name is Westminster. Westminster form of government. Okay. Now, there are two words which need to be clear in your mind. One is HOG. Okay. I'm talking about head of government. Another is HOS, say head of the state. And please remember, these are not the standard abbreviations. I'm just making them so that they can be fixated in your mind. Now, in parliamentary form of government, there is general tradition that head of the government and head of the state will be different person. For example, in case of India, head of the state is president. And when it comes to head of the government, who is the head of the government? It is PM, Prime Minister. Okay. So in nominal sense, in titular sense, there are two words used, nominal, titular. President is the head of the state, or if we talk about the seniority, who is senior, President or Prime Minister, whose position is considered higher. So position of President is considered higher, but real power resides in the hand of head of the government, that is Prime Minister. Okay, and there are some protocols here. If in some ceremony both Prime Minister and President are invited, and the cavalcade, the kafila of both are actually moving towards the venue, then there's coordination between security people that President has to actually come after Prime Minister. First Prime Minister has to reach. So their cavalcade will actually manage the speech so that when President is there, Prime Minister should be present there to receive Honorable President. Okay, and when they have to move out of this venue, first President will go and Prime Minister will stand, and then Prime Minister will leave. Okay, so titular sense, President is the head, you can say senior. Okay, this is just to make you remember, but there are other connotations to this system as well. We are going to discuss that. Okay, so I think these words are quite clear to you. Now constitutional monarchy and parliamentary republic, these two words also need to be clear in your mind. Parliamentary republic. So what is the difference? Take example of Britain. So in case of Britain, head of the state is queen, yani a crown, right? So it means head of the state is not elected by the people, right? So that is why constitutional monarchy. Okay, but in case of parliamentary republic, for example India, head of the state means president is actually there by election. There's an election process to that. Okay, indirect election means we elect our representatives in Lok Sabha, in Vidhan Sabha, it means state legislature, then they people actually engage into election of president. So ultimately this position is related to election by the people, but same is not the case in constitutional monarchy. Okay, so I hope the discussion we had on these terms till now is clear to you, right? If it is clear, mention yes. Clear? Great. Now when I use the word parliamentary system, so what do you think it means? Is it just about parliament, or it is more than that? Because I'm using the word system, and system word means there are some elements here, and these elements are interconnected with other elements in a predetermined manner. For example, parliamentary system, say at the level of center, has Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, president as component, and there as well we have some elements of election to the Lok Sabha, election to the Rajya Sabha, election of president. We have other elements like which particular person, means in Rajya Sabha which kind of powers are with Rajya Sabha, which kind of powers are with Lok Sabha. So it means this is called a system, right? So we have parliamentary system at the level of center as well as state. Please remember, we don't have parliament at the level of state, but parliamentary system, it means there as well we have a legislative body, state legislature, which is responsible for making law for the people of state on a matter for which they are empowered to make law as per 7th schedule of Indian Constitution, state list as well as in some areas concurrent list. This discussion we had before also, but you should be clear in mind, at state we have parliamentary system but not parliament. Okay, so with respect to this center, we have 74-75 talking about this parliamentary system at center. Here we have 163-164 talking about parliamentary kind of system at the level of state. Okay, now what is the difference between parliamentary and presidential form of government? So let's discuss them one by one. Number one, directly elected by the people. It means president is directly elected by the people. So presidential form of government. For example, USA. So Joe Biden got elected directly by the people. But in case of India, can we have someone in the house who can say that, yes, sir, I have voted in the presidential election? Do we have someone? Because if you have voted in presidential election, it means you were part of electoral college of president. It means those people who can vote in the presidential election. And only who can actually vote in presidential election in India? Members of Lok Sabha, elected members of Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha and state legislature, elected ones. Right? We are going to discuss this in detail when we talk about president. But the point is, since none of us, I'm considering that none of you were part of state legislature or Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha. So in this case, you have not voted in presidential election, right? In case of parliamentary form of government, Prime Minister is from the majority party, Please remember, there is no election for the position of Prime Minister in India. No election for the post of Prime Minister. That is why if UPSC make a statement that Prime Minister in India is elected for the position for 5-year term, then you need not to actually sway in your, you can say, emotions. We have seen Modi ji there for 5 years. No. Because we are talking about provision, process. So there's no provision of election for the post of Prime Minister. Modi ji got elected from Varanasi, and since his party BJP got majority in Lok Sabha, and BJP in majority in Lok Sabha said that we want Modi ji as Prime Minister. We want to say that he is our leader. That's how Honorable President appointed Modi ji as Prime Minister. My friends, you need to be very clear about these words: appointed, elected. Okay? Now, President is supreme in case of presidential form of government. Means real power lies with President. Central legislature is supreme. Why we are using the word central legislature is supreme? Why not we have said Prime Minister is supreme in parliamentary form of government? There's a reason for that. Because I also told you responsible government. It means government at the center, they are responsible to legislature. They are only actually having government till the time they have majority in Lok Sabha. So real power is with central legislature. Okay? Now, separation of power. It means executive, legislature, judiciary, all three wings are separate. There's no overlapping there. But in case of parliamentary form of government, there is absence of separation of power. Absence means we have overlapping in legislature, executive. For example, Modi ji got elected from Varanasi, right? So he became member of legislature. He became member of parliament, Lok Sabha. But after that, he got appointed as Prime Minister of India. So it means he is part of legislature as well as executive. It means overlap system is there when it comes to parliamentary form of government. Okay? Now, independent branches are there. As I told you, clear separation, and clear separation in terms of working also. Independent branches with overlapping functions. Functions are overlapping also. For example, laws are made by legislature, but there are certain rules. There are certain rules which are made by executive as well. In literal terms, executive means the real job is to execute the laws which are made by parliament. Accepted. But still, there are some rule making powers with cabinet as well. Okay? President, head of the state. Here, president is the head of the state. So it means in this case, head of the state is president, right? But in case of India, real power is not with president, right? Real power is with head of the government, because head of the government is different. But in case of US, presidential form of government, head of the government is also president. It means in case of presidential form of government, HOG equal to HOS. Head of the state and head of the government are same. Okay? But here you can see there's a difference here. Okay. UPSC will not actually, I would say Lakshmikant has not dealt with this in detail, but I must tell you that there can be a case of parliamentary republic where head of the state and head of the government can be same as well. It means in case of India, you can clearly remember head of the state and head of the government are different. But there can be a case in parliamentary republic as well where head of the state and head of the government are same. But at that point, this head of the state, head of the government need to be responsible to the legislature. Okay, so there can be a way in parliamentary form of government as well. In the starting of lecture, I told you that there's a difference between when we say what is possible in parliamentary form of government and second, what is possible, or you can say features of parliamentary system of India. So in Indian parliamentary system, there's difference. Okay. Individual leadership, as president is there, he is the real head, right? Now, collective leadership, it means PM along with Council of Minister is considered as government. President not accountable to the Congress, right? So it means president is having some law making power, and in this scenario they are not accountable to Congress. But here collective and individual responsibility is there. It means collective responsibility means the moment you lose confidence in the Lok Sabha, you have to resign. There can be a no confidence motion in Lok Sabha. That's why it is said that in parliamentary form of government, cabinet people, in council of ministers, they swim together and they sink together. Swim and sink together because they are collectively responsible. Individual responsibility means that ministers have to countersign the order, as all the orders are actually released in the name of executive head of the state. Head of the state is president, but you have to countersign. You are responsible for the actions done by your ministry, by your departments. Okay, and you have to be answerable to the house for them. Now let's understand the structure of Indian parliamentary system through this flow chart. It is quite easy. Number one, Indian parliamentary system has an executive branch, and within executive branch you have PM, cabinet ministers and administrative machinery. Please remember there are two kinds of executives. You have permanent executives and you have temporary executives. Since you are preparing for civil services, you will be part of this permanent executive. But these cabinet ministers, they are part of temporary executive. You have to give exam in life for one time, you have to clear it, but they have to appear in exam every 5 years. Elections, right? Now, so this executive, it has both permanent and temporary executive. This is called government. Okay, this is called government. And in this government, head of the government is prime minister and president is the head of the state. Okay, so in Indian parliamentary system, you have president, you have executive branch, you have legislature. Okay, so executive and president is quite clear to you. Now talking about legislature. So this system we have adopted from Westminster model. Westminster is a place where British Parliament is located, and that's why it became the famous, that Westminster model. So in India we have bicameral legislature. It means that two houses at the center, Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, right? And this government is actually responsible to these houses and specifically responsible to Lok Sabha. And why we are saying that government is responsible to Lok Sabha? Okay, please remember, when this word is used, parliamentary system of government, you will find a sentence that in parliamentary system of government, executive is responsible to legislature. But when it is used parliamentary system of India, you should be very specific here, that government at the center is responsible to Lok Sabha. Because UPSC has asked this statement in 2015 prelims. So what is the difference, and why only Lok Sabha? Why not Raj Sabha? Why we are sidelining Raj Sabha? We are not sidelining Raj Sabha. It is due to a simple logic that this government is in place just because this government enjoys majority. The ruling party enjoys majority in Lok Sabha. and that is why it is considered responsible to Lok Sabha. It is not like if any member of Rajya Sabha wants to ask some question from minister or prime minister, then they can say, no, we are only responsible to Lok Sabha. No, this is not the case. They have to answer their questions, their queries, right? But the point is, their government can actually lose their tenure, lose their time, only when they actually lose their majority in Lok Sabha. Okay? Now, features of parliamentary form of government. So, president is considered as de jure head. It means head in terms of nominal and titular form, but real power, de facto head is prime minister. Article 74 provides that Council of Minister headed by Prime Minister to aid and advise the President in the exercise of his functions. Now there's a huge debate in Indian polity on the interpretation of Article 74, because some legal luminaries were of the view, since it is saying aid and advise, then this aid and advise will not be mandatory on President. What does it mean? It means that if I am the President, okay, consider you are part of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, so you have passed this bill, okay, and this bill has been passed by Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and present before Honorable President, okay. Now, I have a choice that I can sign this bill and it will turn into an act. I can reject this bill, okay. I can resend this bill, reconsideration, that you just check this bill again and I have some recommendations to be made. Or I can just put this bill on my desk, I'm not going to do anything. Okay, we are going to talk about these choices when we talk about President. But the scenario is, but if you are Prime Minister and you have Council of Minister and you are advising me to sign this bill, will this advice be binding on me or not? So this has been a major debate. So in this scenario, the major consensus was that since we are talking about parliamentary system of government and the Prime Minister and Council of Minister enjoys majority in Lok Sabha, it means they represent the will of people. And in democracy, who matters? Will of people matters, right? That is why it was interpreted, yes, this advice would be mandatory in nature. But please remember, there are some cases in which President can actually took other paths as well. We are going to discuss them when we talk about veto power of Honorable President, okay, when we talk about executive. But in general, it is considered this advice is binding, okay. So if it is clear, until now everything is clear, mention yes in comments. Now second is majority party rule. As I told you, in Lok Sabha, since Modi ji and his BJP enjoys majority, the majority members of BJP, they wrote a letter and they signed this letter and presented before Mr. Kovind, and that's how Modi ji got appointed. I'm using the word appoints, I'm not using the word elected, because election is a different exercise. Election, people vote in election, right? Now other ministers, how they are going to be appointed? Now what Modi ji is going to do, Modi ji is going to prepare a list. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this list, he will say Satyendra, Raghavendra, Ravi. So Modi ji will present this list to Honorable President. Ki sir, now I am going to be the Prime Minister and I want these people as my ministers. Then Kovind ji, now tell me, this advice of Modi ji on the list of ministers, that the kind of ministers he wants, is it mandatory on Honorable President? Or President will say, okay, I'm agreeing with Satyendra, I'm agreeing with Ravi, but I'm not agreeing with Raghavendra. So is it mandatory or not mandatory? Mention in comment. Come on. The advice is mandatory or not? Answer is, advice is mandatory. President cannot pick and choose who is going to be minister or not. It is solely power of Honorable Prime Minister, because it is considered his cabinet. So he has right to choose his cabinet and deliver on the promises made. Okay. So other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of Prime Minister, on the advice. Okay, but advice is mandatory. Now, What if no single party gets majority in Lok Sabha? What is going to happen then? So then we have a method of coalition. Coalition means some parties will join hand and they together will say that we have more than 50% members standing together to form a government. So this can be done. So when no single party gets the majority, a coalition of parties, means parties coming together, may be invited by the president to form the government. Okay? Now please remember, with respect to coalition, there are other words, alliance, and there are two kinds of alliance, pre-poll alliance and post-poll alliance. But coalition word is different from alliance. Alliance means some parties came together. Okay, pre-poll alliance means now elections have to happen, but before that some parties have joined their hands and they're considered alliance. For example, in recent UP elections, Samajwadi Party and some parties, for example, Lokdal, famous party, Lokdal, they joined hands. Some other small parties are also with them. So this is pre-poll alliance. Okay. Now it may be possible that after election, some parties were actually fighting alone, but after election they found, oh, we are short of we are short of majority, and we need some other parties to come with us. So if they make alliance, then that is considered as post-poll alliance, right? Opportunity, you can say, is seen that we can form a government. Then the word coalition, it stands for when they are ready to form government. Okay, and when it is accepted, yes, they are forming the government, they have more than 50% seats in their favor, then government can be formed. So that kind of government where more than one party has come together or are together, then that is called coalition government. Okay. For example, the government as of now, although BJP has more than 50% seats in Lok Sabha, but BJP decided it earlier that we are going to fight election in 2014, 2019 both with some other parties, and that is why they call their alliance as NDA. Okay, National Democratic Alliance. Similarly, in Congress case, in 2004, 2009, they won the elections, general elections, so they were having their own alliance, UPA. But when they form government, then we call them coalition. Okay. Now, collective responsibility. I told you they swim and sink together, right? And responsible to Lok Sabha. No confidence motion can start against them. The ministers are collectively responsible to the Parliament, General, Lok Sabha in particular. Okay. Article 75, they act as a team and swim and sink together. I've already explained this to you. Lok Sabha can remove the ministry, that is Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister, by passing vote of no confidence. Right? You should understand the logic. Consider there are 100 members in the house. Total strength is 100. Okay. And Ravi has formed a party, and that party is having, say, 52 people. So Ravi's party has 52 people and they got elected. So Ravi can actually form the government. So Ravi has formed the government. Congratulations, Ravi. But what happened? After some time, after 6 months, 4 members of Ravi's party, they have resigned. Now at this point of time, how many members Ravi has in Lok Sabha from his party? So you can see that we have only 48. So 48 is 2 less than absolute majority, because for forming government and to remain in power, you need more than 50, right? 50%, more than 50%. So in this case, what is going to happen? That opposition member can actually present this no confidence motion. So obviously, if more than 50% members are not supporting Ravi's government, then it means Ravi has no ground to be Prime Minister, right? So this can only happen in case of Lok Sabha, because in Lok Sabha, people directly elect members, right? In case of Rajya Sabha, the members are elected by members of state legislature, means MLAs of different states vote for MPs in Rajya Sabha. We are going to discuss this in detail in Parliament chapter, but Now we should remember, we are talking about parliamentary system and its features. Another is political homogeneity. It means, say in case of Ravi, so Ravi's party got 52 seats and that's how he formed the government. So it means Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, they will agree on lot of issues. They have some common views, common agendas in mind. So Council of Ministers belong to the same political party and hence share the same political ideology. Okay, what is going to happen in case of coalition? What is going to happen with political homogeneity then? Because we are talking about feature of parliamentary system. So parliamentary system says that if some parties are coming together, okay, say this is red party, there is another party, and we have another party representing from green color, right? So they are together forming the government, but they have to come together. They have to come on consensus. That's the only way to run government. So it means political homogeneity will be maintained through consensus between different parties. Okay. Then we have double membership. It means you will be part of legislature as well as executive, as I gave you example of Modi ji, right? A person cannot be a minister without being a member of the parliament, but there is an exception to that. For example, say Satyendra. So Satyendra got a call tomorrow morning, right, from Prime Minister's office. Satyendra, we are hugely impressed by your intellect, and that's why we want you to head our Ministry for Youth Affairs. Okay, so can actually Satyendra join that? So Satyendra can join that without being member of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, but this can happen only for 6 consecutive months. Before 6 months end, Satyendra has to be part of either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, or should resign from the post of minister. Okay, so this can happen. Leadership of the minister. So minister is considered as the leader. Although this word prime minister is coming from the word primus inter pares, and it means, you can say, main among equal. Means in responsibility you are main, but when it comes to stature you are equal. But if we look into the case of British parliamentary system, we find that their prime minister is quite strong than other members of council, other members of council of minister. So that is why British system is also called as prime ministerial system. And similarly in case of India, prime minister holds the real power, and that is why we can also say prime ministerial government. Okay. So he is the leader of Council of Ministers, leader of the Parliament, and leader of the party in power. Okay. Dissolution of the lower house. I'm making a statement, you have to tell me statement is true or false. Executive has power to dissolve legislature. The statement is true or false? Come on. Executive has power to dissolve legislature. Statement is true or false? Statement is true. What is the meaning of this dissolution? Dissolution means, consider we had this election in 2020, and now we have for 5 years these members are going to be part of Lok Sabha. But it may be possible before the completion of 5 years, the Honorable Prime Minister along with Council of Ministers advise Honorable President, sir, we want re-election. President would say, sir, we just had completed just 4 years. The 1 year left to the Lok Sabha. So then they will say, no sir, the circumstances are such that we want election to take place now. So in this case, President can dissolve Lok Sabha. Okay. So the lower house of the Parliament, Lok Sabha, can be dissolved by the President on recommendation of Prime Minister. Dhyan rakhiyega, before the expiry of the term, and hold fresh election. Okay. And please remember, the word term can only be used with these member of legislature, that as a Lok Sabha MP has a term of 5 years. Lok Sabha has term of 5 years. In case of Rajya Sabha MP has tenure of 6 years, but Rajya Sabha does not have any term. Because Rajya Sabha is a permanent house. It can never be dissolved. And how this concept was made and how this work, we are going to talk about it in Parliament chapter. But please remember the difference of the using word term, because minister, Prime Minister, they don't have any term. because they can be changed, they can be removed from their office at any point of time. For example, Satyendra, your class member, he got a call from PM office now that you can be a member, Minister for Youth Affairs. It may be possible next week someone advises Honorable Prime Minister, sir, Satyendra is not fit for the job. Then Satyendra will receive a fax in the office ki beta, you have to actually go back to your home, your job is done. No if, no but. Okay, so no recourse to this particular firing. So that's why, because Satyendra does not have any term, no security of tenure. The executive enjoys the right to get legislature dissolved. This right is with executive. Okay, in a parliamentary system. Clear? Consider UPSC make another statement that in Indian parliamentary system, Rajya Sabha has power to get union government removed before 5 years. That statement would be true or false? That statement would be false, because I've just told you collective responsibility. Who has collective responsibility? Towards means executive has collective responsibility, means government has collective responsibility towards Lok Sabha. Okay, because they have majority from there. Now, features of presidential form of government. This is important because matchmaking kind of questions are asked. American president both is the head of the state and head of the government. I've just told you in case of Joe Biden. Ceremonial position is called head of the state and the executive organ is called head of the government. So both is same. Now, president is elected by an electoral college for a fixed tenure of 4 years. Please remember, in case of US, they have tenure of 4 years and that is fixed. It means Joe Biden can only be removed in case of impeachment, when impeachment is done. Okay. But in case of India, Prime Minister does not have any secure tenure. He may continue for 5 years, say, if majority confidence of the House is there, but no security of tenure. In case of US President, there cannot be any case of no confidence that now we have passed this bill that more than 50% members are saying that Joe Biden, we don't want Joe Biden, and then Joe Biden can be removed. No, Joe Biden will say, just look into our polity. You don't have these kind of powers. You can only impeach me. An impeachment process is quite tricky one. You have to prove. So he cannot be removed by the Congress except by impeachment or a grave unconstitutional act. Okay. The president governed with the help of cabinet or smaller body, kitchen cabinet. We are talking about presidential form of government. So cabinet, sabse pehle you should be clear that when it comes to cabinet, there is no double membership there. It means the ministers there, for example, minister of, they use the word Secretary of State for Defense, right? So in that case, they are not necessarily they're not part of Congress or they're not part of Senate. Okay, because take example in case of Trump. So he picked some CEOs of top MNCs as part of his cabinet. Okay, this can be done. This liberty is with US President. Okay, and this word kitchen cabinet, please remember this word is not official word. Kitchen cabinet means the people in inner circle, trustworthy people. Okay, do we have this system of kitchen cabinet in Indian context as well? So in Indian context, some prime ministers in Indian history have actually acted in a manner where some people who are not part of legislature, who are not part of government, but these people were advising Honorable Prime Minister on crucial matters. So in that sense, this is called kitchen cabinet. For example, in time of Manmohan Singh, it is said that one person, Mr. Ahmed Patel, who was a political advisor of Sonia Gandhi ji, so he was actually a person who used to play the game behind the curtain. Okay, in time of Rajiv Gandhi, there were some technocrats also. For example, Mr. Sam Pitroda and others. So they were not part of government, but still they were so close to the Honorable Prime Minister that Honorable Prime Minister used to listen to their advice, right? So this is called unofficial, you can say, system. Now, advisory body, non-elected department secretaries, as I told you, means they have this power to have their own cabinet. President and his secretaries are not responsible to the Congress for their acts. But in case of India, ministers are responsible. I told you, individual responsibility. right? President cannot dissolve the House of Representatives, but in case India, executive can advise, means Honorable President to dissolve Lok Sabha, it can be done, right? I think differences are clear to you now. Separation of powers, I told you legislative, executive and judicial branch are separated in terms of membership, in terms of power. So now the differences which we have discussed are mentioned here also. Okay? You can take a look over them. Now what are the merits? In case of parliamentary system, one merit is situation of conflict between executive and legislative branch are less. Why? Consider some MPs are apprehensive on what government has done in COVID times. Okay? You have some grievances in your mind, government has done nothing, government has done that. So some people are having these grievances. So in case of separation of power, you will have these grudges, grievances in your mind, and executive is a separate body, not answerable to you. But in case of parliamentary system, these members of legislative branch are also present here. Okay, temporary executives are also present here. So now you can ask them questions. You can engage with them debate in legislative branch as well. And by talks, by discussion, many problems get resolved, conflict get dissipated. So harmony between legislation and executive just because of the model of parliamentary form of government. Okay. Then responsible government, told you that they are responsible to Lok Sabha. They can lose their government if majority is not there. In case of presidential system, conflict between legislature and executive may continue. I remember in Donald Trump's time, there was a breakdown between legislature and executive consensus for around 100 days. It means there was a time when legislative branch was not ready to actually allow Donald Trump to spend money from their consolidated fund. And you know that no country, no system can work without money, right? You have to pay salaries, you have to pay for development work. So that was a kind of crisis, government crisis, or you can also say constitutional crisis, due to this conflict between legislative and executive branch. So in that context, you can see, yeah, Indian system seems to be better, right? Now no responsible government, it means once Biden has been elected for 4 years, now he knows that his government will be there until unless there is grave unconstitutional act or impeachment which becomes success. Okay. Prevents despotism. Prevent despotism means no matter you are a prime minister, but you have to be answerable to in Lok Sabha. Questions will be raised and you have to answer. Okay. But in case of this, may lead to autocracy, because legislative branch cannot actually, you are not responsible to legislative branch. Now wide representation. Wide representation, why? Because within the lawmaking process as well, consider the plurality in Indian society, right? Different areas, different views, different aspirations. So all of them, when they are present in legislation, they're asking their questions, they're bringing their perspective before government, so new ideas can come up. So wide representation in lawmaking process. Here, narrow representation is there, because in some areas, president has the ultimate power with respect to federal issues, right? So I hope merits and demerits are clear in comparative manner here, right? Now let's talk about parliamentary system demerits and merits in that context of presidential form of government. If you just remember the logic, I'm not saying that you just cram. If you remember the logic, you connect with the essence of polity, then you can easily answer the question which was asked by UPSC. I showed you in the starting. Unstable form of government. Unstable, why? Because of some people, like happened with the government of Ravi. 4 members of parliament get defected to other party, they resigned. So what happened? His government actually got into minority, and that's how he has to resign at that point of time. But in case of presidential, you have stable government. Now some of you might be thinking, sir, what is the demerit then? If Ravi had to resign, let Ravi resign. What people have to actually worry about it? The reason is, if we have continuous unstable government, then you have to bring elections again and again. This will create election fatigue on our machinery. Huge, money is spent on that, public's money. Apart from this, You should also know that if unstable government is there, then there will be no policy consensus, coherence. Because investments, market, they believe in policy stability. Right? If they're not sure of which government is going to come, they will not be sure of kind of policies this government is going to make. Right? For business also, stability of government is necessary. No continuity of policies, as I told you. Consider we started this Bharat Mala project, Sagar Mala project, Make in India campaign. So we have a view, okay, this is going to be achieved in this point of time, and IS officers, every other part of this machinery is going to work for achieving this goal. But if there's unstable government, so it may be possible after 2 years, now new government is saying, no, we want to shell these programs. We are not going to focus on this. Let's make another program. So the efforts you have made, consider you have to go, say, 1,000 miles and you have already gone 200 miles. And now you are changing the direction altogether. Don't you think that investment of capital, the investment of labor will be lost to some extent, right? So that is a demerit. You can quote examples also in your answer. Merits, stable government, definiteness in policies. Yeah, these are the policies which are going to continue at least for 4 years, right? Against separation of power, this system. Based on separation of power, presidential system. Government by amateur, government by experts. Now, what is the difference? In case of parliamentary system, I told you, double membership. It means members who are part of legislature are often become part of executive, right? Now, it may be possible someone is being appointed as defense minister, but he has no idea what is the difference between a pistol or other kind of gun, right? And he has to sign on the official contracts. So he will be dependent on the bureaucracy, right? We are clear about this. But when it comes to long-term vision on or you can say in a minister, then if he is having some expertise on those matters, then it can definitely add value to that ministry. But this happens in case of presidential. For example, if someone is made Secretary of State, sometimes those people are having, long history of exposure to foreign policies. If someone is made head of, say, internal security, so it may be possible that person is belonging to that particular class, right? He has worked as a member of the body responsible for internal security earlier. But in this context, I feel that Indian government has found good solution. Can you give example why this merit and this demerit, government by amateur, can be considered as wrong in present context? Because government has done something to actually bring experts on board. Take example, who is our foreign minister? Mr. S. Shashank, right? Former Indian Foreign Service officer, he was foreign secretary. So he is an expert heading our foreign ministry, right? Take example of Hardeep S. Puri. Foreign minister, he was also part of IFS, Indian Foreign Service Officer, right? So government is also taking up many IS officers, IPS officers, and they are also given ministerial berths. So it means that expertise are being actually added in the parliamentary form of government as well due to some actions by government. Okay, so if everything is clear until this point, mention yes. Clear? Now, reasons for adopting parliamentary system. Now, read the reasoning of Mr. K.M. Munshi. He said, parliamentary form of government has evolved in India during these British time. And this responsible form of government, the idea of responsible government, was actually brought by Britishers in this scenario. So it's not like earlier governments or our kings were not responsible. I told you responsible means whoever is going to be the executive branch, they are going to be responsible to legislative branch. Okay, so this idea was having huge potential, good workability, and that is why Mr. K.M. Munshi was of the view, let's adopt this idea as well, na? Parliamentary form of government. Why we want to invent new idea or bring any idea which is not actually, which Indian system has not having any experience of, is not having any experience, why we are going to have that? Okay, so this is the statement which he made. You can use the statement in your answer. Reasons for adopting. So since a question is going to be asked, as a question was asked in 2021 as well, so you need to remember these words. For example, number one, familiarity with the system. This was the core reason, one of the core reasons. It was working fine. Second, preference to more responsibility. Because without responsibility, there can be a scenario of autocracy, which we never wanted. Because we were recently getting independent. Need to avoid legislative-executive conflict, like happened in Donald Trump's time in US. We did not wanted these kind of conflicts. Nature of Indian society. As nature of Indian society is plural, right? Different areas, different challenges, different dimensions. So now different ideas should come into parliament. They should engage, debate, put pressure on the government so that government can actually work in that manner. And this is only possible in parliamentary form of government, right? So distinction between Indian and British model. So earlier we did a distinction between US model and Indian model, right? But in case of British model, Britishers also have parliamentary form of government, India also has parliamentary form of government. Then what is the difference? In case of India, we have elected president as head of the state. In case of Britain, we have monarchical system. I told you, constitutional monarchy. Head of the state is Queen. So parliament is not supreme in India and enjoys limited power. Okay, because we have constitutional supremacy. Okay, but in case of Britain, their parliament is supreme, parliament is sovereign. We have a one document which we call as constitution, basic rule book. But in case of parliament, they have unwritten constitution. It means parliament has power to actually declare, oh, this particular law is going to be considered as part of constitution now. So it means ultimate power lies with parliament. Okay, this difference should be clear in your mind. Will be used in prelims as well as mains. Prime Minister, member of any of the two houses. For example, Manmohan Singh ji, when he was Prime Minister, so he was once part of Rajya Sabha. Modi ji, he was member of Lok Sabha. Prime Minister, in case of Britain, is a member of lower house, House of Commons of the Parliament. Okay, so there's a difference, right? Prime Minister in Britain need to be member of House of Commons, lower house, but in this case can be of any house. A person who is not a member cannot be appointed as minister. Only exception I told you, this 6-month period, right? Like Satyendra was appointed of minister of which ministry? Ministry of Youth Affairs, right? Now, members of parliament are appointed as ministers. In this case, has a system of legal responsibility by the minister. It means ministers are required to countersign the official acts of the head of state, and in this case there has no system of legal responsibility of the minister. It means minister is going to countersign that yes, this is the order issued by minister, but legal responsibility is not there. When I am saying legal responsibility, you should not consider that we are saying that okay, if minister has done corruption during his tenure, then we will not be able to file any complaint against minister. No, this is not the way. Here it is in this scenario that a minister is also going to enjoy some privileges. Okay, the acts which are done in official capacity, right, will not be considered that minister is legally responsible for that. In case of corruption, then definitely legal responsibility will be there. But it is not like everything which ministers say, minister do, can be used in court of law. Okay, there will be a layer of protection to the concerned minister so that minister can work freely. No concept of shadow cabinet. And here there's a concept of shadow cabinet. What is shadow cabinet? Take example. सबसे पहले you should know that this is an informal scenario but used in Britain. What does it mean? That in 2019 election, we had two major parties fighting, but we know one party won, right? And now they have appointed, say, Minister A, B, C. So these are ministers. These are ministers, okay, in the current government. I'm talking about shadow cabinet. Now, this is the current government. Now, there can be a case of opposition. Opposition wants to put pressure on the government, and opposition also wants their own people to actually prepare when their turn comes. Okay, so what they are going to do? They are going to make shadow ministers. Means they are not actual ministers. They are just given this responsibility that you have to keep an eye. For example, Ravi. For example, Sneha. For example, Rohit. So they are given responsibility that all of you need to keep an eye on A, you have to keep an eye on B, you have to keep an eye on C. So eye on what? On this person? No, the ministry. You should read the policies they are making. You should know about the challenges in their department ministries so that you can ask meaningful questions in the legislature. And by the time next election comes, you are prepared. Yes, when new government is going to form, then you will be in their place. Okay, so this is the concept of shadow cabinet. This is not used in India. If you are clear about this, mention clear. Now, at the end point, I would like to ask this question from you. What do you think? Should we adopt presidential system now? Because presidential system has some benefits as well. We discussed them. So you need to comment below. And those who think, oh, this seems to be a offbeat question, not going to be asked. That should not be your thinking, because UPSC can ask this question in mains. Okay? That how presidential system can be considered as better in Indian context. So you should think on this, considering the differences which we discussed in this video. I hope it is clear in your mind. You can check the PDF in this Telegram group, Shashank Tyagi for you. I'm available on Instagram, Twitter.
StudyIQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।